Okay, I believe this means we are live, although absolutely no one is going to know about it until I copy this lovely little URL. So, please, live. And let's copy that over to my other account. Share that around if you guys would, please. Also, click the link and make sure it works. For anyone who is perhaps catching this video late on the YouTube function that it auto-archives, this is not just a debut, it's also a test. This is our first ever edition of doing any kind of live video stream, so there will be little kinks and bugs, and we don't know exactly everything that's going on, but we'll figure it out. Hopefully you're going to enjoy it. And good, the link works. I think that we are all set, so hi. This is... we don't even have a name for the actual show. This edition is Tier List Tuesday live. This is being cast more extra, after hours, after dark, I don't know. Basically, today, our goal is to add some characters to the tier list, and we're going to be doing it in a different way that we're used to. Usually the conversation is between Clint and myself, and we do it in private, and we go over everything, and we miss a lot of fun by not broadcasting that part of it. It all just goes into the Tier List Tuesday written post, and that kind of filters out everything but the facts, so I don't have to write a novel every single time. This time, we should be able to capture all that and a little bit more, involve some other people. If you guys are out there listening right now, watching live, hello, first of all, get in touch with us. There may or may not be a way that you can interact directly through G+. I don't know it myself very well, I'll be completely honest, so for your sake and mine, if you can't figure that out, just at shonenbeam on Twitter. Send that to us. I'll be answering questions. We can take suggestions for characters as long as we're on the air. So, yeah, that should be it. Let me introduce who we've got right now. As per usual, my tier list partner, tier list co-host, Clint, is here. Hey, Clint.
Hello. I am indeed here.
He is the one without a webcam, unfortunately, for right now.
Yep.
We should start a webcam for Clint fund.
No, absolutely do not. No Clint's money pit allowed.
Okay. We're not those kinds of streamers yet? No? All right. Also joining us today, we got Michael. Hello, Michael.
Hello, Internet.
Michael is a relatively new addition to the shonenbeam team. So like 2-ish months ago, something like that? Roundabout?
Something like that. No, at the beginning of the semester.
Okay, yeah. Usually he primarily writes Claymore reviews, some Isekai reviews, just whatever it is that you read that you can write about. And also we have here John, who you usually hear in the Thursday midweek Big 3 Beamcast. Hey, John.
Hey, how's it going?
Going pretty well. Excited to have you on board. Excited to get to some tiering. We have one request right now, and then after that we're going to hopefully get maybe 1 or 2 names thrown at us through the power of the internet, but if not that, we'll just kind of glance over our MAL lists or whatever else and find other people to tier. But that one request comes from Bob Squab, and it is Morgiana from Magi. Magi the Labyrinth of Magic, obviously. We have only tiered from that series, if I recall correctly, Aladdin himself, the protagonist of the series. Basically, to kind of get all of this out there in the open, since this is the first ever time we're doing this, we should at least give an overview of the project and how to follow it. So what we do on shonenbeam.com is a project called the Great Shonen Tier List, which is pretty self-explanatory, I would hope. It's basically we're trying this big, ambitious, stupid, ridiculous project to rank every single shonen character in order of relative strength. It's a tier list of shonen characters, pretty easy. You can find that by going to shonenbeam.com/tierlist, and I'm actually going to bring that up myself right now. I think Aladdin is in mid-table somewhere for an original point of comparison. We have all the rules and regulations. If you go straight to shonenbeam.com/tierlist, you can see all the exact ways that we grade these characters, how we arrange them, what the terms of each fight are, all that sort of boring, stodgy detail stuff is in there. So where exactly is our good friend Aladdin here? He's not in mid-tier. Let's see, gotta find him first. We usually do arrange same series characters last, but at the same time it does give an early indication as to like sort of the roundabout area of where this character will be. And of course, he is not making it easy to find him. Is he that much higher than this? Basically, Clint, why don't you give us our little rundown as I look here for Aladdin, why don't you give us a little bit of a rundown of your understanding of Morgiana's powers as we've seen them so far?
So basically, Moore's powers are pretty standard within series. She can fly. That's a fairly new power. Everyone was kind of given that power offhand. And she can kick. She's got super strength from belonging to her unique race of people. And she also has the chains that can give her fire attacks, add fire to her kicks, which we've never seen before in any other manga.
Never, not once. He should be in mid-tier. I'm wondering, this could be hilarious. Technical difficulty right off the bat. I think he may have accidentally been deleted from the list at some point, which is pretty funny.
I'm looking in the strong tier right now, and I don't see him.
I'm looking at the tier list Tuesday number 21. Aladdin goes into mid-tier above Kiba, pardon me, from Naruto, and below Choji, also from Naruto, because mid-tier is just Naruto tier, which is ridiculous. I believe, what was it, like 12 of the top 14 characters in that tier are Naruto, or something crazy like that? It's ridiculous. So I will be correcting that as we talk here. But first of all, bear in mind that he is in mid-tier. And Clint, would you agree, first of all, within the series, that Moore is not nearly as powerful as he is?
No, I mean, the main reason Magi got to his place is because he has a pretty strong defense. Overall, as a universe, they're not the fastest, the characters we've seen in Magi. So, like, Aladdin's reason for placement was his Bolg, which is a spell shield that surrounds magicians in the universe, and his ability to dish out enormous amounts of destruction. I mean, as showcased by basically decimating an entire army single-handedly and then fighting that gigantic monster for a while. So, yeah, Moore's not going to be on the same level as him. She might even be quite a ways down.
Yeah, how far? I mean, can we compare? Is there any other character on the list, whether it's this tier or a different one, that you would say is at all similar to her skill set? Because what exactly can she do if you distill it down all the way to the bare bones? She can't fly, correct?
She can fly.
She can
That
fly.
is
Oh,
that
no,
is a
no,
recent
right.
thing, given the feet cuff chain things.
That's going to be weird, too.
She has exactly Sanji's powers, just much less good at every turn. She's not as fast, she's not as strong, not as destructive, not as durable, but the same sort of skill set. She can move through the air, she can kick things, she's fast and strong, she has fire.
Okay. I want to get opinions from outside of... I realize that I believe neither of you two, is that correct? Michael and John read this series, is that right?
I read Magi.
You do read Magi, fantastic.
Yes.
John, you do not?
I do not know, I'm sorry.
No. You don't probably go to the corner. Get out of this talk. You don't want to. No, it's fine. Your thoughts then, Michael, if you do read this series, what sort of roundabout area are you like tentatively taking a look at to begin with here?
Well, what I'm really looking at isn't so much her magical abilities right now, because I believe those mostly complement what she already has, which would be great natural strength, fighting skills. They're basically instinctual, based on her race. And looking through the list, she may not be at quite the same level, but I'm just thinking in terms of Black Star from Soul Eater as a similar model.
As that kind of a character. Okay, I can
Yes.
see that.
Maybe not quite as powerful, because he basically held up a large chunk of the moon on his own.
Yeah,
At the end of that series.
Nip that in the bud. There's no way she's nearly as strong as he is based on what we've seen so far. Actually, what we've seen so far regarding Moore is kind of problematic, actually. Clint, we were talking about this earlier, because basically, due to the unfortunate way that the arc progressed, the one that we just saw recently, where Morgiana was the villain, everything that happened and all of that, she showed up, and we know canonically that she is stronger, but do you have any real understanding as to how or why or in what way that would manifest?
You know, I'm not very certain, because what was happening around that portion of Magi, and I guess it is relevant to talk about the manga at this point, although this is slightly spoilers, so just heads up. What was happening was they were fighting off a huge monster, and they were all basically throwing out gigantic scale attacks, and they each basically got one. Everybody gets one, and then it pans to the next character in the lineup so they can use their fancy move. So she got one attack, which kind of like engulfed the monster in fire. It was just like an enormous amount of fire. And because of it, she kind of showcases the same thing that Magi did, where this universe isn't very fast. Like, none of the characters are incredibly quick. But they have these powers that upper tier characters usually have, like incredible destructive capacity and flight. So it kind of places them at a weird spot where they get speed blitzed by people that are actually a lot weaker than them.
Yeah.
I would argue that in Morg's case, that she has some basic instinct and reflexes that can help her against faster opponents, even if she can't win in, say, a 40-yard sprint.
So you think like reaction speed when someone is close in to her?
Yes, this may be speculation on my part, but I believe her natural fighting instincts may compensate for some of these apparent weaknesses.
All right. John, I want to get you involved here because I know this is not something that you read, but it's also kind of important that we do take a step back because, again, with this project, we're trying to ignore, first of all, any bias. This is not even remotely about the quality of a series. We're not saying that characters higher ranked are better than characters lower ranked, nothing like that. But we're also kind of trying to distill it down to basically just skill sets. So based, John, on what you've heard about like the types of abilities that are in play here, what sort of area are you looking at, or what sort of characters can you possibly relate it to? What thoughts do you have?
So, okay, I'm going to try to put all of this together from what I've heard. So, she's just a naturally strong fighter. There's some kicking going on. What was this about fire exactly?
Clint, you'd be best equipped to answer that.
Think like large, like if she was able to engulf a skyscraper in fire, sort of. That level of supernatural power.
Okay. And did I hear something about chains at some point?
Yeah, that's her artifact. You can kind of think of it as what's a good way of thinking about that? The artifacts are sort of like their Zanpakuto, relating it to Bleach. They each get something that has like a unique power that gives them strengths, and hers is like the chains that she wears around her feet, which are they allow her to fly. They're what gives her the fire power. They give her some slightly supernatural stuff added to her ridiculous level of strength.
All right. So looking at the list, I'm sort of I'm considering, I guess, just sheer number of things that she can apparently do, or the possible combinations thereof. And I'm looking in the tier list right now, and I'm thinking of these characters that I see. Well, thinking of these Naruto characters that I see, since this is the mid-tier list. And a lot of I see a few other characters that appear like they might be a little bit more one note, I suppose. Like I'm thinking that the one I'm looking at right now is possibly Kankuro. Like he hasn't really done a lot, but I mean right here is you've got this vulnerable to close combat. Obviously, it seems like something she'd be pretty good at, and I wouldn't comparing like going specifically based on the list. I feel like somewhere in there might be different. Or might be good. It seems like.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, what the descriptions so far are. I mean, this is a fairly, from what I can tell, a fairly generic set of abilities. But generic can also kind of mean fairly flexible, I guess, is what I'm thinking.
Right. My concern, honestly, is mostly to do with speed. I think speed is first and foremost the big criteria with regards to where to start placing a character. And Clint, you had mentioned that the entire reason that Aladdin is where he is here in mid-tier is not because of his speed, but it's because of his Borg. It's the fact that he could use this magical shield to protect himself from the attacks of most of this tier, who quite frankly, are almost all faster than him. I mean, first of all, Clint, would you agree with that most of the characters, even below Aladdin in this tier, are faster than he is?
Yeah, all the Naruto characters kind of move on a different tier of speed. They all kind of do the faster than the eye can see movement, at least. Most of them move at like a supersonic sort of speed. So it's tough to say that he would be able to even react to that based on like the stuff we've seen in Magi, which is basically like slightly above human levels of speed. We haven't really seen a lot of speed, especially in the after the recent power-ups, because it's been a bunch of people kind of standing around in the air, so they weren't really moving; they were just firing off spells. So yeah, the entire reason he's there is because he's able to soak up a hit, at least two, because he's gonna get hit. He's not fast enough to avoid it.
Yeah, that does make me wonder then. Um, because yeah, there's absolutely no real way that I could justify her. Let's just pick random characters out to prove this point, actually. Claire, for example, from Claymore, I think we could all agree is much faster than Morgiana is. That seems to be, to me, pretty clear. Though the way that her, they're both female, I shouldn't say her, the way that Claire's speed is illustrated, I mean, I would say, what is that, like hypersonic, low-level hypersonic territory, whereas Morgiana has Magi, like you've mentioned before, Magi just doesn't have those kind of speed feats. It's not based around speed, which is perfectly fine. That's not a judgment of the series, but it's not meant to represent that being the requirement for being top tier within that own series. So someone like Claire, I think, just blitzes her. Just as soon as the fight begins, charges in and cuts her head off, basically. And that goes for most of these characters, frankly. Some of
I
them are even more versatile too. What do you? Yeah, what?
I'm looking at the same points you are, and I agree that I really think Morgana would have no way of dealing with Claire, especially her quick sword, because even if she can fly, still, I mean, I don't think there's anything she could do against her. I was looking maybe somewhere between Claire and Shion from Magico.
So you're still thinking in this tier. I'm not entirely sure it's even in this tier, frankly. Clint, what are your thoughts on that?
When I look at fair tier, it's so weird because fair tier is where she fits if you ignore the level of her skills. Fair tier is where she fits minus being able to blow up an entire building-sized monster with fire. So it's an odd combination. Who can she tank hits from while
Yeah.
while dishing out the incredible damage she can deal? Because she can one-shot a lot of these characters with her level of output, which is probably up and strong. Like her and Aladdin and most of the characters from this series have a level of offense that might be up and strong, but it's just their defense and their speed that's keeping them down. So who does she get one shot by? Who can she stand up to and kind of deal a one hit KO to?
The fire attack. First of all, would you consider the fire attack if she were using her number one skill? If she absolutely wanted to end the fight in one shot, is that what she's doing first?
Yeah, I would think so. Like
Okay.
if she wanted to just immediately finish the fight,
Right.
yeah.
So with that in mind, is that a melee attack, or does that rely upon the chains for a little bit of distance?
You know, this is one of those times where I think I'll have to probably pull the chapter up.
Cool, that's what we do here. That's perfectly fine. Got to get it right. As we do this, because basically while you're doing that, and all of you listening in, watching, please feel free to provide us with any evidence that you could. It would be very helpful. If you have arguments for, against, if you have suggestions as to where to put these kinds of characters, please let us know. That always helps. And also, while you take a look for that, I'm looking more in the middle of fair tier, because the kinds of characters that she reminds me of are those like Mephisto, Kukabara from Defense Devil, and Oga Tatsumi from Beelzebub. First of all, bearing in mind that Oga may well need a move, so let's look more at Kukabara, because his series is completely finished. He's a demon who can fly, and he has very strong offensive output. But I wouldn't consider him to be extremely quick, which probably all sounds rather familiar. That's kinda sort of like Morgiana in a little bit. And if indeed, and again we're checking on this right now, if indeed Morgiana does require melee range, she needs to get up close to deliver this, I'm guessing Clint would back me up on this. The masters from History's Strongest Disciple, Kenichi, for all the talk that we were saying, I think quite rightfully, about Morgiana's reflex speed and reaction speed, I would opine that it's not even close to the level of the Masters in Kenichi, who may not be superhuman in terms of shooting out projectiles or fire, like anything like that, but I would say they're easily superhuman and supernatural in terms of the ways they break the laws of physics routinely, even if it's done in a more quote-unquote realistic sort of way. It's presented as though it is sensible martial arts, but no living human could possibly do that. And with that in mind, I don't see, again, if indeed this is a melee attack that she would use, I don't see her getting it in on them. They would have some kind of a counter, and they would defeat her very quickly, I would think. Clint, would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, the issue is they probably have the power to take her out, but there's no way they're tanking her attack. It's supernatural on a level that we've never seen in Kenichi. It's so weird. Like whether or not she can get it off. I mean, she can fly. They can't fly. Although I'd be perfectly confident saying they could jump like 500 feet into the air because that's Kenichi.
Yeah. There's a reason why we haven't tiered the Master yet, the Elder. That's going to be a fun day. He can basically just actually use Hadoukens, can't he?
Nice.
It's time perhaps to use one of our mini resources available here, and I want to present this in the correct light. We frequent a website that we'll refer to as the OBD. It's Outskirts Battle Dome, and the URL, let me get this right, is outskirtsbattledome.wikispaces.com. And I want to make it clear, first of all, this is a really cool website, and we should all check it out. I think it's really neat. If this is the kind of thing that you're interested in, which fictional character would best another one in some kind of hypothetical battle, you need to be checking out this website. It's really cool. However, I want to make it very clear. We will consult their opinions so that we can then follow up on why they formed those opinions. So, for example, if they say that this character has this level of strength, well, that's one thing, but we're not just going to say, oh, okay, well, cool, let's just go with that. We're going to follow up and see how exactly they arrived at that. And there are a lot of really, really insightful people who study these series very closely, and they will do calculations. They will take individual panels and reference them against one another and kind of show the relative distance between points, things like that, and arrive at certain different values and figures, which helps us in what we do. But at the same time, don't take it as gospel. At least that's not what we're doing for the purposes of this tier list. I'm not at all saying they're wrong about anything. The way that they do their site is their own business, and I think that's great. But we do things very slightly differently, and/or we don't always take every last detail of their site into account. And looking now, I have her page pulled up here, because she happens to have a page, which is fortunate. They list, Clint, that she has a few meters of range with chains and fire magic. So I think then that would kind of go back on what you were saying, that the masters of Kenichi would be able to take her out. Given the range, they can't counter a fire magic attack, could they?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, she does definitely have range on the chains, and I am reading through the chapter where she makes her appearance right now, so hopefully finding where she actually uses the largest scale attack she has should be coming.
Okay.
Here's a thought. I don't know. Again, you're going to have to feed me a little bit of information here. Her fire attacks, how sustainable are they? Like, is it a one-shot, or is it something that she could do multiple times?
She can basically keep it up as long as she can keep kicking, so it's a pretty good while. Her metal vessel has the gift of being just a kind of magic being given from somewhere else, so she's not using her own strength for it, really.
That made me instantly look at Lust, who is on this list, and thinking about if, I guess in the manga or Brotherhood, how she was defeated, which seems like something, the way that Mustang did it, from what I can tell, it seems like something that she would also be capable of doing.
Yeah, she certainly doesn't have the benefits that he has. Her attack is not near instant like his is, but even so, I still think that's a very good point. Here's an interesting one. Yuki Onna versus Moore. Who gets their elemental attack to the other faster?
I think Mora is the stronger there. I think they're roughly speed equal. The Nudari Hyon no Mago universe is another universe that never really showed a whole lot of speed in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think she wipes up those characters pretty convincingly, I feel.
Okay. Well, jumping up a couple here, because one thing that you'll see us, if you keep tuning in, do is kind of find the window, so that we're not going through every single character. What about this one? What about this one? Find the upper level and the lower level, the ceiling and the floor. So we've somewhere around here is the floor. We don't know exactly yet, but what's the absolute ceiling, do you think? Huh?
I think her absolute ceiling is Rin, up in the mid-tier. Okamoto, Rin, Hidan, Uvogin, taking Shion out of the equation because the fight with him is a little more complicated. But, yeah, I don't think she's strong enough to take out those characters, especially Uvogin, who you can view as the complete ceiling.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of beginning to look at this as, is she the top of fair tier or the bottom of mid tier? And if she's the bottom of mid tier, she may, be mixed around there somewhere. She may be higher than Sano, for instance, but it's somewhere around there.
I question, and I want to hear your thoughts on this, Michael, in just a second. My thought is actually just a tiny bit lower than that, because first of all, I'm not sure she's well equipped to handle illusions, the kind that Rikuo could do. And also, if we're talking about which character could blitz the other one first, wouldn't Crow's Crow Claw, little tongue twister, or the Invisible Black, really, it slashes at the speed of sound. It kind of, for those of you unfamiliar with Dead Man Wonderland, it basically shoots out from his forearm. So he himself is not all that fast. I'm not saying he's slow, but he's not. It doesn't even matter because the speed of his attack is what counts. The blade would extend out from his arm, and I wonder if perhaps that would be fast enough to take her out. Michael, any thoughts on this kind of region for her?
Well, I was considering the same region as we had just talked about. Like, I think maybe she would possibly be able to beat, in a matchup, Shion from Magico. But you were talking about the character from Dead Man Wonderland, Senji. I haven't read the series, but that seems to sound like a sort of Lust Plus or something.
Kind of is, actually. That is an interesting comparison. In a manner of speaking, sort of, yeah.
Okay. It's very difficult because I'm looking at some of these characters, and from what I can see, I'm fairly certain she could beat several of them, but there's some of them in varying places that I'm not sure.
Well, that brings up, first of all, one of the rules, as much as I don't want to delve too deeply into all of the little rules and regulations, because they'll come up as we go along, but the majority rule is an important one, because this will happen. There is absolutely no clean way of doing it where one character will beat literally every single person below. It's just never going to be that easy. So what we follow is the majority rule. So this is not necessarily factually true, but hypothetically, regarding the characters we're talking about, let's say that we're looking at Rikuo, Senji Kiyomasa, and Sango and Kirara versus Morgiana. And let's say, hypothetically, that she is better than Rikuo and Sango, but she would lose to Crow. Again, that's not necessarily true, but let's say that it is. We would then place her at the top of fair tier. Now, yes, she loses to Crow, but she beats 2 out of the 3. That's always going to be used. That's a very important rule for our tier list. So anyway, back to actual discussion. Clint, I know you've been looking up some more things here and there. What do you have?
Yeah, sidelining the discussion just a little bit to paste this into our chat for us. This and the preceding couple of pages showcases off basically all of her offensive ability that she gets to use. She's flying using chains. She launches a large attack, which is unfortunately really stylized, so you can't tell a whole lot of what's going on. But it's fairly long-range magic attack with flaming chains sort of thing.
For those of you that are not privy to the link, again, I don't exactly know. I'm not completely familiar with G+ Hangouts yet. In case you can't see the link, we're looking at Magi Chapter 195, page 7. And, yeah, there's a decent amount of range to this. So I would agree with what the OBD says. There is some range to that. Please click on the next page and see how it pans out. That's quite a bit of damage. And that's going to, I mean, that attack was used against a fairly, I mean, Clint, would you say a fairly powerful opponent?
Yeah, I mean, basically everyone on the good side of the Magi universe chipped in that fight, and it took all of them to take down that opponent, and she basically on her own fractured its outer shield. So it's a fairly powerful attack within their world and without, I think we can assume, based on the scale of it.
Okay. So what we can take a look at then is, this is not true, obviously, for the entirety of the tier list, but for the characters we're looking at around here, bottom of mid, top of fair, it's pretty safe to say that at least most of them she would one-shot if she gets the hit in first. I'm not confident of the speed of her attack being superior to Crow's, nor am I confident that she would even get in an attack at all if Rikuo has her in an illusion. So for me, I'm kind of looking at above Sango and Kirara. What would each of you think? John, any thoughts?
At the very least, I can completely agree with putting her above Sango and Kirara. I think I do know a bit about Inuyasha, and that sounds pretty fair to me.
Okay. Michael, what are your thoughts on these?
That seems like a fair placement. I agree that there are some problematic situations with Crow and Rikuo. So that's basically where the first real debate begins with where to place her. So I would be comfortable with that placement.
Okay, what about you, Clint? Ultimately, I have to say, we're going to hopefully have a whole wide variety of supporting guests to help us discuss. But since Clint and I were here from the very, very beginning, without wishing to be all elitist and it's out, old boys club or anything like that, there does have to be some semblance of continuity and consistency. So ultimately, it comes down to what Clint and I decide on. So, Clint, your thoughts on this?
Gut reaction, Sango and Kirara is probably a good spot. I mean, the characters above there start to have things that she has trouble with. The only thing that I have a problem with is probably Sano in the next tier up, and that may just be looking too far if she loses to two of the characters in this tier.
So you think that she would defeat Sano?
Yeah, I don't think he has any answer for her attack. I think that he can magnetically push or pull chains all he wants. He's going to get burned alive. But if she loses to Nura and Crow, and I see the arguments for both of those, and I agree, she should probably just go above Sango and Kirara.
Okay, that's cool, and that makes it basically unanimous then. In the future, I will have some graphics on hand to be able to slot all of this in, and hopefully we'll have some character suggestions on standby. But since we didn't know until basically a few minutes ago that we were going to be using this character, you're just going to have to use the power of your imagination for right now. So I will update that as soon as we are finished with this broadcast, but as of right now, just mentally picture the fact that Morgiana from Magi, the Labyrinth of Magic, is now in fair tier. She goes above Sango and Kirara and below Senji Crow Kiyomasa of Deadman Wonderland. So that's number one. Cool. Wasn't too hard, only took a half hour.
That's how this can go. I remember some memorable tiers that we've had that went on for 4 hours.
That Akatsuki tier that we did, that was just excruciating. Because the fun of this, and what I'm hoping will eventually come across to the viewer, is that you get into these ridiculous scenarios of, well, can an immaterial attack defeat someone who's made of jelly? You get such bizarre clashes of powers that you would never have in any of these series. That's where the fun comes into it. It is also quite difficult, though.
Yeah.
Take it seriously.
We at one point had the matchup of Kenshiro versus Negi from Maho Sensei Negima. So we had someone who was intangible against someone who was made out of lightning, which was not fun to try to figure out.
Alright. Little holding pattern right here, because I think that we have someone who's trying to join us, and yet we seem to be having difficulty bringing them into this call. Let's see if I can get his attention. We'll see. But short of any outstanding requests right now, we can basically do whoever the hell we want. And Shout them out, guys. What do you guys feel like doing? We have talked about in the past we could potentially add Hilda from Beelzebub. I know that we still haven't yet done Yamada, the main character of Yamada and the Seven Witches. Got some other ones. I know Jiro from Toriko, and basically anyone from recent Toriko ridiculousness we could potentially add to the list. But any thoughts, guys?
Jiro from Toriko is going to be... he's going to go high on the list. He's going to go really high on our tier list, and we don't even know the full extent of his powers yet, so we'll be ranking him with the full knowledge that when he finally gets his own fight and shows off all of what he can do, it's going to get more ridiculous.
Yeah, basically. Sorry, adjusting here a little bit.
Just remember that there is a character in Toriko whose hair could eat the galaxy, and that is by far not the most powerful character in that manga.
He's not even close. Oh, dear. Oh, man. Okay, so putting him aside, everyone, let's all pull up, and please, again, if any of you out there are watching, I'm not going to bother looking to see what kind of viewer numbers we have for this test debut. I'm sure it's in the single digits. But if anyone hears this, and it's live, by the way, that's an important requirement. If you hear this and you're watching it late, please, show up on time. No, I'm really glad that we'll have the VODs. But if you're here, if you have any particular suggestions, let us know. There's a bit of a delay, so in case you've already sent it in or will send it in, you're wondering why I'm harping on about it, it's because I don't see it for another couple minutes or so. But everyone load up your MALs, and let's see what we'd like to add. Bearing in mind, we need something to work with, for example. It can't just be random, police woman B from show X. It needs to be a little bit something of substance. Clint, do you feel like we have enough to go on for Hilda?
It's her role, oddly enough, even though she's one of the stronger characters in the series, is generally comedic. She kind of... got a couple characters started with fighting, but hasn't done a whole lot herself, which puts us in an odd position for tiering her. We know she's strong within the universe, but we don't really have any idea of the extent.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it might be safer to start with someone a little bit more well-established. I mean, she's been around for ages, obviously. It's not well-established in terms of being a relevant character. Well-established in terms of having pretty clear skills, and I mean, hypothetically, if we were to tier her right now, Clint, I mean, what would we say she can do? She's a decently good martial artist from what we understand, and she has a weapon.
She's decent with a sword, or any sword-shaped object. I think she's improvised quite a few times with like a broom and an umbrella and things like that. And faster, stronger, generically. We don't really know how much.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's put that on hold, unless, again, viewer, if you're out there and you really want Hilda and you have some concrete evidence as to where it would, concrete evidence that would place her somewhere very specific, go ahead and send that in. At shonenbeam on Twitter. It's the easiest way to get to us. I really hope that no one's, commenting on the Q&A thing and I have no idea how to access it.
Here's...
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just looking through the list. Is Koro-sensei up yet?
You know he's not, and we had a discussion about this, and let's talk about it because maybe we'll revise our stance. We had that given to us as a request, and actually I thought it was a very good request. Very important main character right now, popular series in Japan, Assassination Classroom. The problem is, the easy go-to is that, well, what do we know he can do? He can blow up the moon, and he's Mach 20. Those are both stated. But I'm not sure that either of those are actually true, because if we look at the speed feats he actually does, I think that's faster than Mach 20. And also, we don't canonically 100% know that he is actually capable of destroying the moon. We don't know that he did it. So do we want to tier based on the possibility that he did it? I'm not entirely sure, but what do you guys think? Oh, also, is that Jeff?
Yes.
Hi. Jeff, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Working on technical difficulties. While he's getting that fixed, Clint, your thoughts on Koro-sensei?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, there's a little thing here that I think turned off the mic. I just turned it back on again.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll get to you in just 1 second, but Clint, go ahead.
I think we have basically no idea of his destructive output, which is kind of I mean, it matters nothing for the series, but obviously when we're tiering the character based on how strong he is, it matters quite a bit. So we have no way of saying like who he would be able to defeat. We know he's faster than a lot of characters. We have a very exact number for his speed, which, like you mentioned, we're not entirely sure is right because it says Mach 20, but then he does things like create clones of himself that can all be doing separate actions for like 30 members of a class, which is, I think that's well beyond Mach 20.
Yeah. No, I would agree.
I'm thinking about based on what we have seen. I guess part of the problem is that he hasn't really fought per se in everything. I mean, and you could count this as being one of his abilities, but pretty much every confrontation he's had, there's been an element of just strategy. Like, he's had some sort of plan that's always allowed him to win. He hasn't really had to use any of his ridiculous abilities, at least not to their possible full extent. So in that regard, yeah, I could see how that would get a little tricky.
Well, with that in mind, I just thought of someone that I think we had been holding off on for a very long time because he had never actually fought to his fullest extent. But guys, what would you think about doing Genryuusai Yamamoto from Bleach?
I think we're well past the point where he could power up any further, so that's probably a safe bet.
He's dead.
Spoilers. That's another thing. By the way, probably should have said this at the top of the show. Spoiler alert for everything we talk about. If you are the type that really is concerned about spoilers.
Literally every part of the show, the Titanic sinks.
King Kong dies at the end. What the hell are you talking about? The movie's been out for 90 years. Yeah, this is very much the spoiler show. We're going to be, by the way, as a tangent, we are going to be doing more of these shows that are more generic, broad-based, hopefully one this Friday as well. That may be the one that you want to tune into if you get mad at spoilers. But anyway, Genryuusai Yamamoto, how about that? So basically, he's got a big old fancy Bankai that worked for a second and then didn't because plot. Because this is exactly how Kubo has screwed over one of his most powerful characters twice, right? If I recall, he did the same in Hueco Mundo. Didn't Aizen have like a direct cancel?
Aizen had a Arankar that was directly designed to stop Yamamoto from doing anything useful in the fight.
Right. Okay, so what can Bleach do? What can Yamamoto do? His Bankai ended up being fire-based. He could basically incinerate everything in a given area, and it is that right? It was kind of an omnidirectional attack. He didn't really direct it at one enemy. It was just kind of he pulls it out and death.
Well, I think his sword was stated to be like as hot as the sun at one point, which is a very common comparison in shonen. But
yeah.
Yeah, I distinctly remember that when he brought the weapon out, like when he brought it out, it was specifically like drying up all the water in the air in all of Soul Society. Like it had that far-reaching effects.
Well, that's good. Okay, so he goes above Soul Society.
And I'm pretty sure he says, roughly translated, burn all creation to ashes, whatever his sword's name is.
Yeah, so his Bankai, pulling up a page on this, not to cut you off, his Bankai has 4 abilities, like a north, south, east, west thing. We can get to that when we get into the discussion.
Right. Yeah, I remember there were multiple different powers, so... Yeah, actually, I think that's actually probably the next thing that we need to take a look at here. So what are the specific uses of his... first of all, you have to say Bankai quite clearly, categorically, his strongest peak. That is his peak form, yes?
Yes.
Okay. It is Bleach. Okay, so I've got it pulled up as well. Can kind of spread this around, but let's see. First of all, he's got Higashi, which focuses his Reiatsu, and is that just kind of like a fire reinforcement of his sword? Seems to me.
Looks like it's, makes his sword stronger by focusing his power along the sword.
Okay. Nishi is a defensive feature, I believe. Yes, he has a shroud that envelops him in flames, Reiatsu flames that reach above 15 million degrees, which is hot. That's hot.
Just
Science.
a little bit.
Minami is... That's the Raise the Dead one. Okay, this calls for another introduction to one of our rules. A character can only use what is available to them. It can only embody their own power. All of these fights that we have, the hypothetical fights, take place in some hypothetical universe. It's not in the Bleach universe or in the opponent's universe. It's in a hypothetical universe disconnected from anyone else's. And there is just fighter, other fighter, flat land, breathable air, no topographical features of any kind, no other characters, nothing else. So for the purposes of this attack, he raises the dead, all of his fallen comrades, he raises. He wouldn't be able to do that here because they aren't in this Earth. So that's irrelevant. And finally, there is Kita, which he slashes, and it's basically just the first one, but with range, it seems to me. Okay, so he can slash with immense fire and defend himself with immense fire. Seems pretty straightforward when we boil it down. Yeah, Michael, go ahead. What do you think, first of all?
Well, I feel like, of all, I have trouble imagining a character in this list who has greater fire powers than he does. He is pretty much a master of flames, and he has incredibly high destructive capabilities, so that the authors basically had to write his powers out of the story every time he appears. I would say maybe he can't destroy the Earth, so that might be sort of the limit to his abilities if we're considering where to place him in the tier. But yeah, he's incredible sword-based magical abilities. He's also incredibly good with this physical strength and fighting, as we saw in the fight against Aizen. And
go ahead.
I have trouble imagining another swordsman beating him, at least, easily.
I think that the whole talk about incinerate all creation and the range he could destroy all of soul, like that, all of that, there may be a certain element to it, but I think mostly that's hyperbole.
I meant mostly cool points, at least.
Yeah. I mean, when you mention he can't destroy the Earth, I don't think it's anywhere even close to that. Maybe he could destroy like a country or an island or something like that, but I don't see Earth whatsoever here.
Yeah, I'm saying there are other characters who can, but
yeah,
that's maybe his limit.
Let's pick a random spot to begin with. And if we take a look at the kinds of characters from Bleach, again, not to rate against them just yet, but to kind of get a ballpark, because, again, we know him to basically be better than all the rest. Bleach, I keep doing that, as though Bleach is a person. Ichigo, who is not Bleach, but is in Bleach, Ichigo is in basically the middle-ish of elite tier, and then we get a bunch of other characters that I would think quite obviously are inferior to Yamamoto. I mean, in this tier we have Kisuke, Urahara Kisuke, Yoruichi, Gin, Byakuya, and I think that's it for the Bleach characters. So again, not strictly doing it by looking at comparisons within the same series, but you would have to think that for all of the reasons that someone like Kisuke is going to be able to beat everyone below, probably Yamamoto would be able to do the same. So it's worth taking a look, is what I mean by that. So let's start doing that. Clint, I'll give you first crack at this. What do you think? Where does your eye fall on the tier list to begin with?
Without ranking him against Ichigo, because that's really annoying because of what Ichigo is ranked right now, and he's going to change very soon as he shows off his new powers. Without ranking him against that, my kind of gut reaction is to put him up against the Yu Yu Hakusho's and see how he does there. I think he's at a level of power that's just passing everyone else in this tier up. I did take a look at top. I don't think we have to worry that he's going to penetrate that tier. I think pretty concretely he's an elite, somewhere around the top of it, because top tier is where you get the vectoring. For anyone who's not familiar with the list, you have characters that vector, you have characters that telekinetically warp things into outer space or into the sun. You have characters that can reconstitute themselves by force of will. It's a kind of ridiculous tier, so he's not getting there.
No. I wouldn't. You're really putting him up against the Yu Yu Hakusho characters. I'm not sure he's that fast.
Well, I think it's a good place to start, if nothing else, than to find his ceiling.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean, let's do that then, because if it were speed equalized, damage perhaps around the same, but the feeling that I get, the Yu Yu Hakusho characters were on such an unbelievably high level of strength, and yet that wasn't even their main feature. Their main feature was speed. I get the feeling that all three of the characters in this tier, let alone Kuwabara, who's way out of it, would pretty handily defeat him. Jeff, you haven't had much chance to talk since you were only able to join us recently. What about you? What do you think about this sort of region of the tier list in Yamamoto?
Yamamoto? I'm trying to decide because he's one of the characters who's kind of difficult to. It's like you said, it's difficult to picture what exactly his capabilities are. I distinctly remember the whole 15 million degree sword thing. That was always the thing that stuck out with me because you said characters who can teleport people into the sun. That's about the same kind. That's about the same kind of power I just imagined Yamamoto having, because that is literally the power of the sun that he's wielding. That's just always the thing that stuck out with me about Yamamoto, and if I were to actually try comparing him to other characters, that's probably where I would have started.
Okay. I'm seeing here we have a comment in the YouTube stream, which is it's really interesting where it's putting comments. I hope that hasn't been up for too long and I've been ignoring you. Sorry, we're still getting used to this. So we have a comment here just again explaining Yamamoto's Bankai. It has 4 parts. One has his sword absorb all the flames. That's interesting, has his sword absorb all the flames. Is that referencing absorbing
That's the first
flame?
one. I think that's the first one, I think, where he condenses his power into the sword.
Okay, so it's referencing him putting his own Reiatsu into the sword to then use it as a reinforced attack. Okay, so yeah, we have it the way that we do understand what the power is. Good. Yeah, John, I'll kick that over to you as well to get another thought before we proceed with moving around the list here. What do you think about where we've been looking right now?
I think he may have just dropped from the call.
Well, good.
Yeah, someone just dropped, yeah.
Okay, John's not here. Technical issues. Michael, I'll toss that over to you then. Same question.
Well, based on the series I've read, I actually disagree with some of you and feel like maybe he belongs in the top tier if just at the bottom, because I feel like any of the Toriko characters at the top of the elite tier don't quite match up to what he's capable of.
Do you think?
I believe so.
I'm not so sure about that. Go ahead. What's your reasoning for that?
Well, I feel like Toriko, for one thing, Toriko characters are completely broken. We'll just agree with that.
Yeah.
And I feel like Sunny has incredible abilities involving his hair, which I think Yamamoto's abilities with fire would counter fairly well. Same thing with Coco's abilities with poison. And honestly, I think it's not so clear to me that Zebra could beat Yamamoto. He is incredibly powerful. We have not seen the extent of Zebra's powers yet. As it seems to me we haven't yet.
No.
But looking at the top tier, just for argument's sake, I have a hard time believing that Medusa from Soul Eater would be able to beat him in a fight.
Let's explain exactly what it is that sets top tier apart from everyone else so that you can... I'm sure Clint has exactly the same reaction as I do, which is there's no way in hell he's getting into top tier. Top tier, basically, you have to have something incredibly special to break through this bottom wall. Because everything below that tier, however ridiculous it may be, however outlandish and supernatural it may be, still relatively follows the laws of physics, mostly. Of course, bending the rules a little bit here and there, but for the most part it's just, well, this character is extremely fast, faster than all these other people, or he's stronger than all these other people, but it's kind of linear in a way, obviously with certain little creative powers. When you get to top tier, Medusa, her ability to alter vectors, redirect vectors, she and Accelerator, they're not interchangeable, but they're extremely similar in having certain kinds of controls over vectors, which throws all of that out the window. It's a completely different kind of fight. Physics are involved, loosely, but it's totally different in that, yes, he probably has, if you were to gauge like impact, if you were to gauge the force at which Yamamoto and Medusa could each strike someone, he would vastly outscale her. That's not even in question. But that's not her power. Her power is to just rip someone to shreds by having these vector arrows. In case any of you are not familiar, she can have these vector arrows just appear anywhere she wants. So let's say, for example, if I'm the enemy, she can have it appear here and here and here, and just shred it apart in every which direction just by seeing the character. Accelerator, just by touching anything, can redirect vectors to send things every which way. So it's a totally different kind of fight. And Clint, do you agree that he's not going to be breaking in here?
I actually agree that he might go at the bottom.
Okay.
I can see reasoning for him beating most of the characters in Elite Tier, and that reasoning, after I thought about it, is his defense move. His defense move is the full strength of his sword, which is the 15 million degrees stat, and it's just wrapped around him. With that in effect, there are only a few characters in Elite Tier that I can see doing anything about that. I mean, like was mentioned already by Jake, I think, the hair that Sunny uses and the poison that Coco uses are both going to be completely burned, evaporated before they ever reach him. Toriko was actually beaten by a character who's very similar to Yamamoto, like just a few chapters ago.
That's a good point, actually, yeah.
Tommy Rod's bugs are going to be incinerated. Ueki is one of the characters I mentioned who might have an answer. He's incredibly fast and he can fire like an energy bullet type thing, which might penetrate the kind of heat that's being output by Yamamoto. And like that's the kind of characters that I can see possibly doing something, like Yusuke, who can fire enormous amounts of, I mean, he's basically a satellite cannon for all of his purposes. He just fires enormous amounts of energy. But most of the characters around the top I see being beaten by the defense of Yamamoto.
So it's not even the whole... Usually the first big thing is who speed blitzes the other one. And this is not actually what you're talking about. It's about which characters could actually penetrate this defense.
Yeah, he's a very similar case to Frederica, who's quite a bit farther down the tier, but uses the same kind of strategy to get where she is. She is up there not based on her personal merits, but based on the fact that her defense is basically wrapping herself in this incredibly strong fire, which is sort of what Yamamoto does.
Would you not... I mean... Okay, energy on energy, and for to clarify something, this is potentially the weirdest aspect of what we do. We have to kind of guess how well equalized certain different energies are against each other between different worlds. Ki versus chakra versus magic versus devil, certain different kinds of things. But, okay, it's one thing to say that Toriko's flying knife and fork could not penetrate that shield. And I may even agree with that, actually. But wouldn't sound... I mean, sound... Is he enveloped in his shroud to the extent that he's cut off senses from the outside world?
Here's one of the questions we enjoy. Can the heat of the sun stop sound waves? I'm not a physics major. I don't happen to know that. I know sound travels through air, and I know heat does funny things to air.
Do we have any physics majors on board here or watching? Please help us out with that one.
I've learned some physics, but not quite this field.
I don't think flame will stop sound, but I think we also need to consider if he can... Let's just say, for example, sound attacks can hit him. Will they be strong enough to take him out of the fight and damage him? And can sound block fire? I don't think it can.
It's an interesting conundrum because of Zebra's attack, which is the kill sound.
Yeah.
Yamamoto's a ghost, though.
Basically, Zebra's ultimate attack is that he just shouts. And obviously, that travels at, well, you guessed it, the speed of sound. Do we feel... Well, first of all, I do feel, personally, that the intensity of Zebra's attack could defeat Yamamoto, personally, because outside of the Bankai, I don't have the greatest understanding, and maybe that's just me and I need to be brought up to date, but I don't have the biggest understanding that he's exceptionally durable just in his normal state. The Shroud gives him unbelievable defense, but that's external. If he's killed from the inside, do we have any... I mean, Clint, do you, from your Bleach experience, do you know of any reason why Zebra wouldn't be able to kill him?
Not really. I mean, going purely on the fact that the level of Toriko attacks are easily at the level of Bleach, if not directly past it after this newest arc, like, if not way above it. I think pure, like, destructive output, Zebra is probably stronger, so if his attacks can penetrate the fire, he might be able to kill. Yeah, that's probably a good bet.
The other way that you have to look at this is, what if they didn't just charge in? What if their first step wasn't to just attack? Because if we go back down, further down the list, for example, let's disregard Toriko for just a moment. You mentioned Ueki having the maneuverability, agility, whatever, as well as the variety of attacks to potentially be able to break through that barrier and take him out. I mean, does Kaede not also have something similar where she's not going to charge in and get incinerated by this thing? She's going to be up in the atmosphere somewhere firing weapons down? Isn't Muto Kazuki just going to be flying around killing his enemy by the sheer virtue of him being alive, because he does that whole, because of the kind of being that I am, everything around me is drained of its life?
I think Kaede specifically is going to lose. None of her weapons are going to get anywhere close. Kazuki is another one of the cases where he might have something that can get through based on the lances. But when you go down here to Kazuki's level, I think we again run into the problem of the actual merits of Yamamoto are enough for him to duke it out with these characters. He is actually fast enough and strong enough to keep up with these characters, if not the Toriko characters. So his shield isn't all he needs to rely on here. He has the full scope of what he's able to do.
Okay. Let's get the.
I'd like to point out.
Thoughts. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I'd like to make the point that he is established as being pretty darn fast, because if you remember in the very early in the series, in the end of the Soul Society arc, when I can't quite remember the names. The two captains that he taught personally, they decide to try to save Rukia as well, and they basically race him to a certain location. He's waiting there for quite a while for them while they're sprinting. So he's capable of speed. So I just want to make sure that we don't forget that he is physically capable, at least as much as the Toriko characters.
He's definitely fast. I'm not confident in him being as fast as Toriko characters. I think this is a good segue back into taking a look again at what OBD has to say about the characters involved here. Let me bring this up. I've had Yamamoto open for just a couple minutes here. They list Yamamoto as having hypersonic plus tier of speed. They actually happen to mention, I think, what you might be talking about.
Yeah, the exact example that you just mentioned, yes.
That's great. And I recall from memory, but I'm going to look it up to be absolutely certain. If I recall correctly, they list those Toriko characters at the top of this tier as massively hypersonic, which, again, if I remember their definition, I believe that means Mach 4 digits and higher. I could be wrong about that.
Mach 1000 plus, I'm pretty sure that's correct.
To take a look, they list Toriko, to pick one out of 4 or 5. They list him as massively hypersonic plus. This is one instance where we not only have to trust OBD on that, we kind of have to trust ourselves, because this is something that we, Clint and I, already went back and verified back when we were when we were re-tiering the characters at the top of Elite. We saw that they had gone so much faster than they used to be, and we went back and looked for any kinds of signs of evidence. And when you look at the 4 Beast fight in particular, you can see how quickly they traverse massive areas of terrain. So it's tough, because again, let's now just bullet point it. And Jeff, I'm going to start with you here. Let's just grab. I'm going to go down the list, rapid fire, gut reaction. I want, very specifically, do you think that the ultimate attack of each of these characters can penetrate Yamamoto's defenses? That's the only question I'm asking right now, is if they were using their kill move, could they actually land that attack on Yamamoto to damage him? So Zebra we already talked about a little bit, as well as Toriko. So let's begin with Coco. It's a sphere of poison, made entirely of deadly poison. It's completely fatal on impact. And he fires it at light speed, or very nearly light speed. Do you think that gets through the fire shroud, Jeff?
I don't think so. That doesn't seem like the kind of attack that could penetrate 15 million degrees. Like I could imagine some of the other characters, not necessarily Sani, but I don't think Coco could pull it off.
Okay. Next up, Michael. You mentioned this before, so I'll toss this to you. I think Sani's ultimate attack is meant to be the Satan hair, where it completely consumes the opponent. It doesn't just cover them up, it actually consumes them. It erases them from existence. It basically eats the opponent. But
Yes.
if Yamamoto is shrouded in fire, does he just get burned?
I have to say so. As Sunny has an incredibly powerful ability, but again, you can have all the hair you want, but it's not going to get past 15 million degrees of shield.
Sorry. I love the sentences that we produce on this. You can have all the hair you want, kids, but it's not going to get you past 15 million degrees of fire shield.
Only in Shonen.
I love it. Clint, Tommy Rod?
The bugs died of fire.
Yeah, pretty considerably. I'll toss it to myself. Ueki Kosuke, I could see the willpowered instant kill potentially getting through, but I'm not even sure that matters with the sheer volume of characters we're talking about here based on the majority rule. We'll come back to him. Jeff, let's go back down to you. Kaede, Negima. You actually did read Negima, so that's helpful. Knowing what she does best, which is to fly around, she can also kind of warp between different points in reality thanks to her cloak, but she's essentially super fast, zipping around in the air and going to be like shooting things down. What do you think her chances are of getting through the fire shroud?
Her abilities are mainly based around stealth and defense, so offensively I don't think any kind of anything even remotely close to what Yamamoto does, I don't think she can get past anything like that.
Okay. Clint, to jump it back to you, is this enough of a sample size right here?
Yeah, I think so. I think the spot I've been looking at is splitting up Toriko characters between Zebra and Toriko.
That's exactly where I've had my eye, and I think it's because Zebra's attack is faster, because Yamamoto has to slash the sword. Again, as far as we're aware, if we're wrong about that, let us know. He has to actually slash the sword, which, granted, is fast, but Zebra doesn't even have to move a limb. He does have to move a muscle, the vocal cord. I'm sure there's a muscle in there somewhere. He has to shout, and that's it. That's an insta-kill. Zebra, this also can potentially touch on the rules, the conditions for actual victory. It's the first to die loses, regardless of whether the other fighter is guaranteed to die shortly thereafter. So they're probably exchanging attacks, and the outcome probably is that both of them would die, frankly, I would expect. But I personally believe that Zebra's sound wave would kill Yamamoto before Yamamoto's sword incinerates Zebra. I want to go down the line and see what we all think here. Jeff, your thoughts?
I'm not sure if it would be like guaranteed, like one. If the two did actually meet simultaneously, I do think that Zebra would probably live longer. Also, possibly because this is Toriko. Toriko seems more likely to have its character survive something like this, just from what I've read. I don't know why I think that. It just does.
It's only going to get worse, isn't it? The direction Toriko is going right now. That's better suited to regular beamcast, but oh boy, the power levels are going out of control. Michael, what about you?
Well, it's sort of confusing for me because I could see the argument for being a very close battle with Zebra, but even if I'm on my own here, I still don't think that Medusa in the top tier could beat him. So I'm very much thinking at very bottom of top tier, or perhaps the very top of elite tier, but I could see him maybe being tied with or slightly under Zebra because it's pretty debatable.
The whole idea about why the vector control is such a defining boundary is that an attack like this, and maybe this is a bad example, we'll have to talk about that, But an attack like this has a physical form. It has some element of existence to it, so it can be vectored. So that's the point. It's not that if Medusa was just standing there defenseless, she could be burned alive. Of course she could, you're right. It's that if he was slashing at her, she could redirect the sword elsewhere to where she's never getting slashed, while simultaneously putting arrows on him to rip his shroud off, or to rip him straight apart from whatever part isn't covered by the shroud to begin with. That's the way that I would see it. Clint, is it the same for you?
Yeah, and we have to keep in mind that all of his attacks are flame-based, even if he's using the Reiatsu to power them, and heat is a vector.
Yeah.
So she never gets hit. That's one of the barriers to top tier. That's why characters don't make it in, is because they have to have something weird. They have to be able to do something that isn't entirely normal.
Yeah. I mean, the characters that don't do something that alternative are just simply way, way above any scale of power. And I'm looking at the Dragon Ball characters, for example, because they don't have anything like that that's like physics altering or anything like that. They can fly into space and blow up the planet, and then what's Medusa going to do? So that's different, but certainly that Yamamoto is not on that same level of power. So it comes down to it. Final verdict has to be, again, between me and Clint. I vote for splitting up Zebra and Toriko. Clint, same?
Yeah, same position.
Cool. That was fun. I'm glad we can finally put him on the list. I've wanted to do that for years. It's been so long since he was involved in Hueco Mundo and all that, and he never actually properly got to show off, frankly, either time.
Yeah, it's too bad he never really got a fight. He just had to be written out of the manga, because I feel like if we had seen the full extent of what he could do in a fair fight, he'd probably go higher.
Yeah.
Actually, there was something I was thinking about just now. It's like, I was thinking about what would happen if, like, Yamamoto was actually in a fight with Accelerator, because there was something I read about with Accelerator, with the discussion of whether or not he could actually survive a nuclear bomb, and the discussion said he couldn't because it would take away all the oxygen in the air. And I sort of imagined something like that would happen if he fought Yamamoto.
That's a decent point, yeah, actually. I'm not
You keep
sure.
forgetting that Yamamoto is a ghost. He doesn't need oxygen.
Yeah, that's honestly like it's so downplayed though. It's not really that important, and certainly we couldn't sit here and argue and say, well, clearly Yamamoto's best course of action is to fly into space, because it has to be something that we can reasonably assume based on what they've actually done. That's another one of our rules. It's something that we have to judge each character on visible evidence. It has to be what they've actually visibly done, or an extremely reasonable assumption thereafter. And him flying into space and setting the world on fire is a little bit too much of a stretch for my tastes.
Yes.
We did at one time have a person suggest that there's no way Whitebeard would ever lose to NL because he could just put on rubber gloves.
That was actually a thing that happened. Well, then why don't we just give the whole tier list rubber gloves? Rubber glove tier list. No, yeah, we get into weird situations like that. Also, I mean, to echo what you were just saying about, Clint, about how disappointing it was that we never got to see Yamamoto at peak condition. I mean, talk about the other name you just dropped right there, Whitebeard. Whitebeard would be so much further up the list. But he was only demonstrated, he's only on the list based on what he actually demonstrated in Marineford. We don't know what else. Everything else is hearsay. As a One Piece fan, do I know, quote-unquote know, that he deserves to be way higher and he could take out so many of these characters? Of course I do. But we never actually saw him use Haki to his fullest extent, so that's why there are certain kind of odd placements here and there. And it's sad. With regards to Whitebeard, I hope we eventually do get some kind of a flashback of him and Gold Roger in the early days. Yamamoto, to bring it back on point, I don't think that's ever happening.
A flashback in Bleach, we'll never have that.
It happens, it's just he's not going to get it. He just gets short shrift all the time.
We've had another person drop from the call.
Yes, we have. Weird. Oh, he signs in on Twitter to let us know, but he had to sign off because he was going 2 frames a second, so that's good. That's fun. Sounds like me lately in Path of Exile. What else can we possibly do as a trio? Power trio right here. Medeski, Martin, and Wood, giving you...
Do we all read Yamamoto?
Yamada?
Yamada, yes.
I mean, put him in that series. That'd be awesome. Sure. Genryuusai Yamamoto and the Seven Witches. That'd be pretty awesome. I want to read that now. Someone Photoshop that, please. I mean, I do, and Jeff, do you? Or not Jeff? Jeff's gone. Michael, do you?
I do read that series.
Well, it shouldn't be too hard, frankly. So for those of you who don't, what the hell's wrong with you? First of all, start reading Yamada and the Seven Witches. It's really, really enjoyable. Is it Yamada Shinobu? Is that his first name?
I have to look this up.
It's been so long since I've heard anyone refer to him by his first name.
So, starting where we should look, probably around the same area as Yamamoto.
I think so. I mean, he can fly, right? It's Ryuu, Yamamoto Ryuu, or Yamada Ryuu. Yeah, he can fly. I think he's got
world destroying.
Yeah, he can lose his corporeal state and become intangible. Correct?
Yeah, that's him.
He could just kiss Medusa and take her powers.
That would be great.
She is a witch, yes. So.
Yeah, for those of you who unfortunately are not familiar with this series, we are joking. He cannot do any of those things. He is a delinquent who is slightly special, granted. He does have a power, but it's not going to come into play for the purposes of the tier list. He can copy the ability of a very select set of people by kissing them.
And even if we factor in that he has one of those abilities for the fight, which you may argue is his peak condition, he has to kiss someone to use the power, so it's not really going to do a whole lot.
Yeah, and again, this is one of those states where... Well, actually, you know what? Let's talk about that briefly. Would he start with one of their powers, one of the witch's powers? Because we judge each character at their individual peak condition that they are fully in control of. If someone else helped them get to that state, it's fine as long as they are 100% in control of that state. So the example I used in the explanation is that Gash and Kiyomaru can use the Golden Book. Even though the Golden Book required everyone from 2 worlds to, I don't even remember what it was basically a spirit bomb in a book, sort of. But it then became a tangible object that they could then use. But the spirit bomb, Goku's spirit bomb, is out of the question because it requires active participation from a whole bunch of other people. So, Clint, would he be able to use one of the witch's powers, if indeed that would even be helpful?
I mean, the characters exist before the fight, ostensibly. I mean, they have, like, reached whatever age they're at, and they have acquired their skills and things like that. That in mind, I think we could give him one of the powers, because at some point he has gotten one, and then that is his strongest point. He doesn't need a girl to continue to give him the power. He just has it.
That's an entirely different genre and demographic of series. I require continual kissing. Yeah, that's the Dojin. So, well, I mean, with that in mind, even if we agree that that's possible, first of all, it has to be someone that he has already kissed, and whose power he can use. So, for those of you thinking, oh, well, he can use the memory erase thing and then just make the other person forget why they're there, I don't know, that's not going to work. He's never had control of that power.
Honestly, if he's able to kiss his opponent, his best option may just be to walk up and punch them in the face.
That's true. The abilities that he has shown are the body swapping ability, useless here. He can charm.
He swaps bodies with Goku. It's worked for other people.
Oh, that's pretty great. A charm ability? I mean, that gets into the whole like willpower territory. That there's a sort of like willpower equalization that came about because of Haki in One Piece that we kind of had to say. Like, you can't reasonably say that only characters literally with Haki can defeat others with a devil fruit or other characters with Haki. There has to be some kind of equalization based on willpower, which is what essentially Haki is an energy supernatural form of. So I think that it would be the same sort of thing, don't you?
Yeah.
Breaking out of or like whether they would succumb to his charms as Odagiri.
Well, the charm kind of makes them fall in love with him. So I think they could fall in love with him and not like immediately do everything he says, because characters in the manga have shown that they have their somewhat of their free will still after they've been taken by that power.
Right.
Their free will seems to be they want to make out with him, though.
Yeah.
Well, that turns into a very interesting tiering session.
He charms all of Kuroko.
Ooh, I like that. Do we have any Prince of Tennis characters in the list? I don't think we do. Oh, no!
It's okay, he's not a dinosaur.
One day, gonna tier dinosaurs right below that guy. Just all of them. Dinosaurs, the species / race / yeah, one below. Telepathy, it's not telekinesis, it's not mind control, it's just the ability to talk, so that's useless. Premonition, useless. Seeing the past, useless. And he never got the invisibility one, right? That was...
Yeah, that's the soul...
Tamaki.
Yeah.
That's funny. Tamaki, eventually, if we put him on here, would go higher. That's hilarious. So yeah, I mean, I think that solidifies that the best course of action would just be to go up and punch the guy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Worth checking. And worth picturing Yamada kissing dinosaurs. Okay, so I mean, obviously, joking aside, bottom tier, clearly. He's basically just a delinquent, and I wouldn't even say he's like a top tier delinquent, frankly. He is strong, but he's also sort of been matched or occasionally manhandled, hasn't he?
Yeah, the other guy who was taken into their club, I can't remember his name.
Miyamura?
Not the presidential candidate, but the other student who was originally going to burn down the other apartment.
Oh, yeah. I'm so bad with names in this series. I know who you're talking about. Sorry, everyone, that we're forgetting this name, but anyway.
He kind of handed his ass to him when they first met up. I mean, Yamada tried to boss him around and basically got completely manhandled. So he's not like a particularly strong delinquent. This isn't Onizuka or anything by any means. No. That in mind, I have a very clear placement where he's probably going to go.
Let's start there, and then I'll start talking to Michael about where we feel about that position. So what do you think? Where are you first looking?
I'm looking very specifically at Isamu from Buyuden as his ceiling.
Okay. So, Michael, let's begin there. Bottom tier, we're looking below someone who is a boxer. He is relatively well trained. He's pretty good. He's not Ippo yet. He's nothing of that caliber just yet. But he's a competent boxer with like a few-ish years, I think, of experience. He's going to have good movement, and as we list on the page here, he actually specializes in counter punches. So I would agree with Clint on that. So let's take a look at the couple characters below here. We have Kuroko, star of the basketball series, who is pretty weak. And then there's the oddity of he's kind of hard to notice. He's not invisible, he's not concealed, it's just that it can be hard to spot him in a crowd, which I'm not even sure necessarily helps him. And then we have Soma, who is just a young guy with a knife because he's a chef, that we gave him the knife. Your thoughts on Yamada versus either one of these two?
I feel like he could pretty much, the very bottom, the floor, I think, would be Soma, because he's just an average guy with a knife, and at the very least, Yamada he knows how to fight people at the very least. I think he can handle himself. I'm not so sure about Kuroko. I feel like if he notices him, he can beat him in a fight, from what I hear. So
yeah.
I would think maybe right below the Isamu from Biyuden is a reasonable placement.
I mean, yeah, Kuroko's not going to be winning any fights anytime soon. He's not super weak. He is an actual athlete. He plays basketball, so he is relatively athletic. It's just that he has a weak constitution. He has very low stamina. Like, those sorts of attributes are not impressive. And also, he wouldn't want to fight anyway. He wants to love. But Yeah, I kind of see it. Is it really just that easy, Clint? Is he just below Take?
Yeah, I mean, he has either exceptional athletes, trained fighters, or people with unique kinds of equipment above him. And then beneath him are kind of normal people who aren't going to be able to deal with like a full-on delinquent.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was hard. So Yamada goes bottom tier as I type it in. Again, in case you tuned in late and missed the message, since we were this whole thing came about very, very suddenly, so I don't have images on hand or descriptions on hand to put in the little boxes that are in the tier list, which means that those will all be updated after we finish the broadcast. So don't worry, I haven't forgotten. I am aware that as I say that Yamada goes into bottom tier, beneath Isamu Take and above Kuroko Tetsuya, I am aware that it's not going to update immediately. I'll get to it later. So above Kuroko, sorry, I have to do that correctly. Bottom tier on top of Kuroko and beneath Take. Okay, cool. Let's see. Got a little bit of time. I'd say the absolute max I would ever want to go with this is 2 hours, and it's been an hour and a half-ish. Do we have any other outstanding business? By the way, viewers, if you are still out there, do you have any characters you would like to see re-tiered? Do you have any qualms with current character placement? That's also something that we can handle on the Tuesday night show. So please do let us know. Again, at shonenbeam on Twitter, or you should be able to comment in the YouTube feed, and hopefully I will see it. I'm not even sure if it's actually refreshing properly, but I believe it is. So any other order of business, what sort of things would you like to do, guys? Any movements, any new characters?
One character I'd like to see at least considered for the tier list at some point would be the main character of Angel Densetsu. I can look it up here. I think his name's Ichiryuu.
I believe you're right.
And I think it would be an interesting addition because he's established as fighting several characters who are proficient in martial arts, and says while using unconventional fighting techniques. So I think that would be an interesting discussion to have at some point.
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the whole aspect of his fighting style, it's almost like it's not a fighting style. It's a style to try to not fight. Isn't it?
Exactly.
It's kind of like, this is so weird, it's like he's offensively defensive, sort of. It's not even outright like a counter. It's like he's just kind of trying to shrug it off, and he happens to win.
Yes.
Yeah.
His only offensive move he ever uses, as far as I can remember, is a push.
Well, I mean, broken tier.
Exactly.
Easy.
Probably beat Medusa.
Yeah. What's Seiya got on that, really? Come on. Psh, mastery over his state of life or death? Come on.
Speaking of Seiya, the Gold Saints, the Silver Saints, every character in Seiya is basically confirmed broken tier. We will eventually get to it.
That's a question for the audience. Do you have a Saint Seiya character that isn't broken tier? Let us know. It's going to get so tedious, and broken tier is going to get so bloated because they all go in there.
Listeners, find a Gold Saint that isn't completely broken.
Because they all have the 7th sense and the 8th sense, and the 7th sense is, I don't even need to talk about it. I think it's something to do with screw it, it's irrelevant. It doesn't even matter. They've got some kind of already broken thing there in 7th sense, which I forget right now. But 8th sense is literally the control over your own life or death, like your state of living. So you wouldn't even die. You would just revive yourself or resurrect or something, reincarnate. I don't even know.
Their powers over life and death aside, all of them have base stats, basically, that are lining the realms of being able to destroy cosmos and being able to survive entire galaxies being tossed at them. It's a ridiculous level of strength.
I think their punches are all faster than light, I think. I could be wrong, but I believe that's kind of the whole point. Yeah, it's insane. It's fun, by the way. I mean, Saint Seiya is fun and a classic, but it's ridiculous. Okay, so what else can we possibly do here? I don't know so much about any of those other characters, unless we really wanted to do Jiro, because let's take a look. What sorts of characters are we going to be able to do from Toriko in the near future? We could add Jiro, again with the asterisk that he's capable of more, but frankly, so are a lot of the characters on the list, so we could add him. We could add...
Ichiryuu.
and
His
Midora,
character.
right?
Yeah.
Minority World.
Minority World.
Minority World, yeah.
Let's pick one of them, because rather than... I don't want to end the show on let's just talk about what we could do. Let's pick one of them and do it, and I'm stating this will change in the future, but frankly, so do most of them. What is the most either relevant or immediately tierable that you would say?
I mean, Ichiryu's gone.
Okay.
I would agree that Ichiryuu. I don't
Okay.
think he's going to get any more powerful than he is now.
Well, there is that. However, so you want to take a stab at explaining Minority World? Go right ahead. Be my guest.
Okay. The power of Minority World is that he can control the 1% of atoms that apparently don't do what the other 99% do, which means that he can control the atoms in his body to fly because 99% of them aren't flying. He can make the majority of his cells regenerate as he's being damaged, and he can essentially make you start dying spontaneously because most of your body isn't dying. As much as I can explain it.
Great. No, I mean, thank you. That's as good as an explanation as we can possibly hope for, but...
It was... Let me go ahead and point this out. It was countered by someone accepting the minority within them.
So they... Okay, so that's someone so unbelievably powerful. The opponent here, Midora, not even just Ichiryuu, who is also broken. But Midora, so unbelievably powerful that he can control the state of his atomic being, is basically?
Yes.
He can control the state of his atoms.
Because of the food
counter
he
that.
ate. Yes.
Okay. Who the
Also-
hell does that?
I think also that Midora has a special because has a special... I think they're like reflector neurons, was that it? Or mirror neurons.
Something like that. It's all based on the food that he ate to bring him to where he is now, right? And like the appetite that
Yes.
he has.
Basically, he was able to copy the Minority World ability, which made him able to fight him.
Right. I mean, that's... Okay, we have to try and keep it... one incredibly stupidly overpowered character at a time here. As an aside, holy... What the hell happened to Toriko? This is unbelievable. Not even a few months ago. It was just like, hey, fun, food world, punching things, atom manipulation.
So basically, the only hope that someone has in my mind is speed blitzing Ichiryuu. And I say that like it's a viable option. Here's why it might not be. He is unequivocally many times faster than the four Heavenly Kings, who are all in the quadruple digits of supersonic. Which means he is at least in the high digits of quadruple supersonic, possibly quintuple digits.
Yeah. So speed hacks ridiculous, stupid abilities. He's at least top tier, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
If not outright broken tier. Let's look at the... I think floor will be easier to find. What does he do about characters who instantly stop time?
Maybe blitzed by those. We're guessing JoJo's characters. We have two with the same power, basically. I don't see him being able to do a lot to them.
Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe there's any sense given that this is something happening subconsciously, is it? This is something that he has to actively choose to do, even if it happens on an atomic level. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
He has to consciously choose to use the ability.
So he would have to kind of like mentally give the command for things to happen to atoms. which he couldn't do if time was stopped. Now, would they be able to... I'm pretty confident that both Jotaro and Dio would be able to kill him with the stands, wouldn't they?
I mean, the durability level of Toriko characters is pretty high, which is where we used to have a problem with JoJo's characters because they don't have an incredible destructive. But if I remember straight, they may punch like as fast as light or something ridiculous like that.
If I recall correctly, Star Platinum is faster than light. I will... this is, again, another instance where it's fantastic. I love these guys at OBD. What they've done is just fantastic. Let's see what they say, because they've accumulated all that information, which I recall, I think it was even back in like the like certain Omake pages in JoJo's itself, he would give like grades. Yes. Star Platinum is faster than light, and Jotaro, apparently they list him as having faster than light reaction speed. And Dio is effectively the same, not as high of a reaction speed, but again, faster than light for his stand the world.
So basically, physical strength aside, they're carrying basically infinite mass punches. If you're familiar with the DC universe, you will know about that from the Flash's ridiculous canon. Because they're punching at the speed of light, so their punches gain mass as they travel faster. So they actually probably can kill Ichiryuu, especially with the freeze time. They get to punch him as many times as they want, pretty much, for a couple seconds.
Right. And well, okay, now I was about to say that Jotaro can do it consecutively, but if there's any time between intervals, which there is, then boom, you're dead, because atoms. You're dead.
I would go along with this. I would say that basically any character who can beat Ichiryuu would have to have either teleportation or be able to stop time. Because if he knows they're there, no matter how fast they're going, Minority World can somehow cancel their speed, I would assume. And if they stand next to him for any period of time, he can just use Minority World to kill them.
The level of speed we're talking about here, this happens so rarely, but it is the top of the list level of speed. Because, Clint, you're right, in just how much faster they are, they being Ichiryuu and Midora, from the Four Heavenly Kings, who are all Mach 1,000 something, some 4-digit value probably. With that in mind, he actually would be able to visually, to lock on to these targets. Typically, obviously this is a stupid argument to make, but let's say, for example, you put Jack Racken from Negima up against Sanji from One Piece. Okay, it's obvious. But the one particular aspect of, let's say Sanji was the one allowed to attack, and all Jack Racken could do was escape. The reason why he couldn't do anything to Jack Racken is because Jack Racken's going to jump away and then never to be seen again by someone whose reactions and own physical speed are too slow. But, Clint, I think Ichiryuu could follow these kinds of characters.
Certainly Negi and Rakken. Don't know about Evangeline. She's kind of another tier of speed up. And I definitely don't know about the DBZ characters because they all have teleportation.
Yeah, well, they have interesting teleportation.
They can teleport to life forms, which Goku and Cell will still be able to do. Majin Buu has perfect teleportation. He can teleport literally anywhere in the universe.
So I think with that, all right, so first of all, let's just kind of check them off here. Buu wins, yes?
Yeah.
Just instant teleportation to anywhere but there. So
he could teleport to, I don't know, outside of the Earth and blow it up.
Yeah. So that's fine. And we believe that the JoJo's characters would win. The only caveat there being, what if they couldn't kill him in time stop? But that may not even matter. He may be high enough above that, potentially. Negi, you're saying, is on a tier of speed that would be followable.
I think so. I think as fast as Negi is, Ichiryuu is at that level.
Okay. I'm going to bring up the Negima pages on here as well, thanks to the awesome OBD, because I think you're right, but I want to see what all manner of people have to say about this. There's Evangeline, there's Negi Springfield. There's a couple names right there for us. Negi, they list him as He's fast. That's all. All it says is he's fast. Now,
That helps.
to somewhere he can potentially, apparently, according to them, and I would need time if this is contentious, I would need time to go verify it myself, but they claim that he could potentially get up to Mach 6600 plus, which again, he's fast. But I would think that Ichiryu is even faster than that.
Possibly, yeah. I think it's not a stretch to say that Ichiryu can keep up with him, if not outpace him.
Yeah. And as long as he can see him, he wins. I mean, right? Even yes, intangible lightning thing, but suddenly he's not intangible because he has atoms still, right?
Yeah.
Does an intangible thing have atoms? Is that a thing?
I would assume so.
Well, but
It
it's
has-
kind of...
Negi
Made out of something.
is still electricity. He is not Muso Tensei.
That's true. Okay, it's different from Kenshiro. This is where it gets fun. I swear you need a physics degree to do this incredibly stupid, inane, immature activity that we do. Okay, so I think, based on my complete lack of knowledge about physics, admittedly, but I think that Negi would lose based on everything we just said.
I'm fair saying that.
Okay. Majin Buu we know would win. And let's see, what about Goku and Cell? Goku and Cell can do it's not perfect, but they can teleport behind an infinite number of times, so should they choose.
They essentially get a free hit, and
It kills them.
yeah.
It just kills. They can destroy a planet, they can destroy a guy standing on a planet. They can kill him.
Yeah, they can. I feel pretty comfortable saying DBZ characters can kill Ichiryu.
If we want to be absolutely certain, since we've been using the OBD just for reference in this circumstance, let's be completely fair.
I've brought up the OBD of a DBZ character.
Oh, I know. I'm not saying you're wrong. I just want. Honestly, it'll be funny. Come on.
It's hilarious.
Let's see here. There is Son Goku, and where in the world is Cell?
Goku. So they have these tiers of striking strength that they list, and they grade it in kind of classes. It's listing Goku at striking strength class NJ+. I'm going to have to go check what that is. Give me a minute. It'll be hilarious.
Again, while he's looking that up, if you tuned in late, you wonder what site we're talking about. It's called the Outskirts Battle Dome. It's a fantastic reference for the kinds of things we're talking about, which character is stronger than whom, or what can anyone do. The URL is outskirtsbattledome.wikispaces.com. You find that chart of strength?
I can never find this.
I've got it here, actually, if you want me to read it out for you.
Go ahead.
Class NJ, you said?
NJ+.
NJ+, so that's above this. That is somewhere, it's not just the base level. It's Ninajoule class. Attacks carry exatons of energy. I don't have the slightest idea what that means, for the record. Planetoid and Moonbuster physical attacks. Physical attacks.
So Goku can punch apart the Earth. He doesn't have to use the Kamehameha.
Yeah, basically. I think he would win. I'm going to go out on a limb on that one. I know it's a stretch. Dragon Ball often regarded as a weak universe, but I'm going to go ahead and suggest he might win that one.
His speed is described as sub-relativistic, which, for you out there, that's basically just under the speed of light.
Great.
He's actually just under existing everywhere at once.
Right.
So...
Which, is Boo just that?
I wonder.
Because I want to see what they say about that as well. I hope you're following along, by the way, viewers. Please do check out this website. It's so cool. I love this place.
Sub-relativistic plus minimum.
Sub-relativistic plus minimum. Yeah, I think, frankly, the other thing with this, the reason why we don't take the OBD information to the exact letter of what they say, it's only a reference, is that they will focus on exacting little scientific figures, mathematical calculations. For example, one thing they'll do is pixel calcs. They will actually measure the number of pixels in a particular attack or a distance between characters to measure speed, and then relate that to another another demonstration of the similar feat. If it's speed, for example, let's say it's character X moves from here to here in so many pixels, or whatever it is, or the attack moves that quickly, and then they'll compare that to something that is known to us as regular human beings, say a car that is depicted in the series moving from here to here in so many pixels. Now, we choose not to follow that one, not because we're thinking that they don't know what they're talking about. That's one way of looking at it, and I respect that. But I feel personally that artistic interpretation and artistic license are really important with regards to manga, especially shonen manga, which really kind of over-dramatizes a lot of scenes. So their way of doing it, totally valid. We just happen to go a different way with this. So with that in mind, I would say that, yeah, Boo is not omnipresent. He is not so fast as to exist everywhere simultaneously, because if he was, frankly, there's the common sense matter of the fact that he would have been shown to have that. So, back on track, back to the other ridiculously overpowered character we're talking about here. So Boo wins, Goku wins, Cell wins. Yes, both of you? Michael?
If my basic concern was, even if he can get there, will that one punch or one chance destroy him? If it can destroy the Earth, I'm fairly certain it can destroy Ichiryuu.
I'd say that's a safe bet, you know? Alright. And Clint, any argument with the idea that we're going to put him at least beneath Dio?
Not really. I mean, I think he might beat Negi, but based on our majority rule, he would go underneath the JoJo's characters, yeah.
So majority rule beats minority world.
Yep.
See what you did there.
I would
Okay.
just ask, can the JoJo's character... don't read the series. Can the JoJo characters kill him with that one punch they have?
Okay, first of all, you need to remedy that. This is a PSA to everyone. Read all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. You're welcome.
I'll do what I can.
Second of all, actually, it's not a punch. It is very many punches. Let's say, what do we have here? Jotaro, for example, can stop time for roughly 5 seconds. How you count 5 seconds when time is stopped, don't ask me.
He can then
I have
he
no
can
idea.
then punch at the speed of light.
Faster than the speed of light within that time frame. So it's not a punch. It is faster than light punches for 5 seconds.
How does light move if there's no time?
You are new to this. Logic. Get rid of it. No logic. I believe that those two would be able to. There is perhaps more question with those two than everyone above them, and maybe we may be viewing that wrong. Maybe we're getting that one wrong. Viewer, listener, please let us know what you think about that one. But I want to take a look at a different section of here because we've got about 10 minutes left in the hour, and I do want to try and wrap up at about the 2-hour mark. Another big tier of Dragon Ball characters, let's put that on hold for a second and skip below it. Kenshiro and Ryuu, Muso Tensei. Intangible, yet they still damage whatever they pass through. Clint, go. Have fun.
Their powers are spirit-based. I have not completely read Fist of the North Star. I've read a bit, but I'm pretty sure that Muso Tensei is based on shifting into some kind of spiritual form, correct?
It's a martial art which is typically depicted as a philosophy / that's more closely related in my mind to something spiritual than it would be something in terms like a supernatural energy.
It's not like they're using physics or science to shift forms, and it's not like
a key or something.
Yeah, and it's not like an energy like chakra from Naruto. It's more of it's a different thing. With that in mind, I don't know if Minority World would affect them when they shift. I do wonder if Ichiryuu is so fast because they don't start off in Muso Tensei that he just punches a hole through their head when the fight starts.
I'm not so sure they don't start in Muso Tensei, but at the same time, I don't even know if that matters. Anytime we tier someone relative to this power, it's so difficult because of speed. Because Kenshiro is not, speed-wise, remotely in this tier. However, his power is so unbelievably powerful that he definitely belongs where he is. The thing is, it kind of boils down to which one of them could kill the other, rather than which one actually in a blow-by-blow fight would kill the other. Because Kenshiro, if Ichiryuu was just trying to get away, Kenshiro will never catch him, ever, no matter what. And then if Minority World does work, then he'd be able to pepper him from afar with atom changing. We don't know that it would against this spirit, whatever, but let's say that it did, that's how he would win. But if it doesn't work, then neither of them can kill each other in the fight the way that you would describe it happening, logically speaking. Someone with the advantage of speed would be racing all around, taking advantage of their speed. And Kenshiro would be using his intangibility to not take any damage whatsoever. Neither one of them would ever intersect. So then it becomes which one of them conceivably could kill the other if they actually used an attack on the other. And I think Kenshiro could kill Ichiryuu, but I don't think Ichiryuu could damage Kenshiro. What do you think about that?
Oh, I agree that Ichiryu is fast enough so that you'd have to be at least as fast as him, even if you're intangible, to catch him and do damage to him. I don't know. This is difficult.
Yeah.
I think that I think that Minority World could beat intangibility, even though it's spiritual in nature. Also, Minority World also enhances himself, like his healing, his regeneration. So you have to bear that in mind as well.
That's a good point, actually. So if he could regenerate himself, would he regenerate himself at the rate at which he's being damaged by Muso Tensei? My brain is hurting. Let's pick a different example and see if this even matters. Because
we see Ichiryu regenerating massive amounts of his body after they're obliterated by Midora's tongue attack. And yes, I did just say tongue attack on the internet.
He gets licked to death. Oh boy. So what's our floor? We had picked a floor and then we went below our floor, I think.
I think he beats Neuro, Kyosuke, Kuwabara. I think they all fall prey to Minority World. They're missing a means to stop that. They can neither kill him immediately as soon as the fight starts, with the maybe exception of Kyosuke.
I think Kyosuke could, yeah.
But they also can't defend themselves versus Minority World, and that's a losing combination.
So Neuro, the two things he has are Evil Metal, which is just it's a slashing attack without the slash. The cuts just happen, but he would need to be able to see the enemy. And again, Ichiryuu way too fast. And the other thing he has, Evil Reflector, that can reflect any oncoming attack, but it's an oncoming attack. He can't reflect the changing nature of atoms. So I would agree Neuro would lose. I think Kyosuke would win. I just think he teleports Ichiryuu out to space and that's it. Although maybe that's not enough. Is it a reasonable assumption to say that Ichiryuu could take the minority of atoms that could breathe in space and have them overwhelm the majority that can't breathe in space?
The minority of his atoms that can survive in the sun.
Oh my goodness, this is ridiculous. So Kyosuke aside, because it's probably still going to be majority ruled anyway, Kuwabara?
Loses. He still has to... His sword still requires movement. He still has to do something with it to move it through dimensions, so I think he loses.
He has to pick a target, and if he can't see the target and keep up with the target, which as fast as Yu Yu Hakusho characters are, I think this is, again, 1 or 2 tiers higher than that.
Yeah.
So I would agree floor is Neuro. No lower than Neuro. No lower than above Neuro. Which puts us right back between Time Stoppers, Dragon Ball characters, and intangibility.
I mean, Dragon Ball characters... Frieza and up can destroy the planet.
Yeah.
Krillin is weak as hell in the Dragon Ball universe, but that doesn't mean anything on the tier list because the Dragon Ball universe is...
He's stronger than anything else from any universe.
Yeah. Man.
That's a tough
I
one.
don't. Are these plant? All these plant destroying attacks that of Frieza through Son Gohan are instantaneous, correct?
Well, oh no, that's a good point.
It does take a minute.
They fly out to space, they fire a big energy whatever the hell down at the planet, and the planet explodes. So you're suggesting, I assume, then that
Minority
Ichiryuu
World.
would reverse the existence of those things.
Or he can at least follow them and punch them in the face while they're trying to focus whatever they're using to destroy the Earth.
That's
They-
interesting.
They might not even get off the ground. I mean, he's probably as fast as these characters, and he can at least follow them with his eyes when they start to try to take off into the air, and maybe Minority World just removes all powers they have.
Right. There is a difference in speed between Gohan and Goku based on that instant transmission.
Right, yeah, that's
Difference.
the reason that these Dragon Ball characters are beneath the JoJo's characters and the others are above them is based on teleportation. These characters still have to move. None of these characters can teleport. They're very fast, but they still have to move around. So I'm willing to say he's as fast as them.
And I've just checked, and I believe, if I'm reading this correctly, that OBD backs you up on saying that. They list Ichiryuu. It's awesome how quickly they update this stuff. They list him via power scaling, which admittedly we sometimes are a little iffy on, but I think here it's going to be fair. Mach 30,000 plus is Ichiryuu, and Gohan, who is the highest rated of this little quartet of Dragon Ball characters, they list as Mach 31,000 plus. So
Right
I know-
near each other.
I know it's incredibly stupid to say, oh, come on, it's only 1,000 Mach speed. That's nothing. They're the same. I know, that's dumb. However, can we then reasonably assume that he's going to have sight for even the tiniest fraction of a microsecond on enough of Gohan to change the atomic structure of his opponent and then kill him?
And I don't think based on artistic license we could even just say, like, he's 1,000 above Ichiryuu.
Yeah.
There's such a huge difference. I mean,
Exactly.
because it's so close in numbers, because it's 30,000 and 31,000, artistic license has to be kind of taken, and you have to kind of give it some wiggle room and say that these characters are basically around the same speed.
Yeah. So,
I would say that no matter, even if they're fast per se, unless they're so fast they can somehow beat his reaction speed, they're not going to be able to beat Minority World. Which is why
that's
I
the
would
other
think
thing, yeah.
they'd have to either stop time or teleport.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Yeah, it's a really interesting take on it, actually, that in a way Ichiryuu would be protecting the world from the Dragon Ball characters. He'd be saving the planet. We must save the world from Gohan. He's good. He's a good... No.
If only he was Saiyaman.
Well, don't worry, they'd fight in some canyon somewhere.
Broken tier. Saiyaman gets a new tier above Broken. Too good. It's him, and that's it. Actually, just him.
Mr. Satan.
Ooh, yeah, I'd put Mr. Satan in that tier. Sogeking?
We need to tier him. Add him to the tier updates.
I'll put him on the short list. Maybe next time. Mr. Satan. I love saying that. Alright, so we're basically down to the last minute-ish of our show here, so the big chunks we have here are below the time stoppers, above the Dragon Ball characters, and then it's kind of ambiguous. We sort of tentatively said that he would lose to the Muso Tensei characters, but it certainly wasn't nearly as clear-cut as it has been with the other two groups here, the JoJo's and the Dragon Ball.
I think we kind of have to ignore them because of how annoyingly complex and difficult to interpret their power is in conjunction with other powers. And we have to say that he beats 4 characters right here, so he should probably just go above Son Gohan.
I think that's fair, Michael. I'd like to hear your thoughts as well. What are your thoughts? Are you okay with that placement?
The two spots I see are either below Dio Brando or below Cell, because I think it's debatable. Well, again, I trust your judgment over mine on this. I would think it's debatable, not quite as clear cut as to whether Jotaro and Brando, even though they can stop time, can beat him, but they would at least have a chance of doing it.
I think you're actually exactly right. Those are the two locations.
We just don't know whether or not Jotaro and Brando have the capacity to take out Ichiryuu.
Well, we can get a little bit of help on that. Why don't we? If it comes down to tiny little statistical analyses like that, let's see what OBD has to say about that as well, because they probably do have some kind of figure. They have figures for everything. Crazy. Mojo Jojo from Powerpuff Girls. That's what we're talking about, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, good. Like it. So they live.
Okay, they have a specific stat for his power via time stop because he can accumulate damage over the period which time is stopped.
Okay.
Listed at small country.
Is that all, really?
Which I'm assuming Ichiryuu is a little bit past.
Just a small country.
I happen to be on Ichiryuu's page right now, and his durability, relative to the destruction of the other one, obviously, his durability is at least continent level plus, according to the fine folks at OBD. Well, that's a pretty good argument right there. However, I don't want to simply rely exclusively on other people's opinions of that. I would love to see a calc, if at all that is possible. Do you know what? I mean, calc probably doesn't even enter into it, frankly. Power scaling via common sense enters into it. Here's an easy question for you. If the four Heavenly Kings so decided to do so, could they blow up a country? Could they blow up a continent, possibly even?
Yeah.
Maybe a country.
Okay, let's keep it relatively reasonable. That's impossible, but relatively. Let's keep it semi-reasonable and say that the four Heavenly Kings could destroy a country. Ichiryuu is way past them, right? That's the impression that you guys both get?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Or Jiro can knock the planet.
Jiro can knock the planet, and Ichiryuu is at least as good as, if not probably better. I would guess better.
Because he was the older of the two of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least as planet affecting.
And yeah, based on their relative positions in the world, you would kind of figure that based on canon simply. So yeah, I'm starting to swing the other way and say that yes, time would be stopped, and yes, Jotaro and Dio both would get in their massively impressive punches, faster than light punches with their stands each, but then time would resume, and they would be obliterated via Minority World.
Yeah, I've come around to that too, now that we've been talking about it, looking at stats.
So the only question then comes down to Negi, which we had both, I think Clint and I had both said that Negi would lose, is that right?
I feel like he loses.
I feel the same way. So below Cell. Michael, first time ever discussing tier list stuff with us. You've swung us around to your way of thinking. Thank you.
There is a calc even for the punching level of Star Platinum. So I feel pretty good about that.
Okay, good, fantastic.
Glad I could contribute to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the thing. It comes down to myself and Clint, but we've been accused before of bias. We've been accused of it being like an elitist opinion club or something like that. We welcome being wrong on things. We're trying to get this right. It is a silly project. It's a fun project. There is not a right answer at any given time, but we want to try our best to make it as close to what could ever be considered right as we possibly can. So we love to be wrong. Please let us know. Just don't be a dick about it.
And listeners, bear in mind that the relative scales we're using here are basically continent level durability, country level durability, and like planet destroying. So these aren't the most objective measures that we can go by.
Are you sure? You want to go blow up a continent to test?
No, I don't think Antarctica's doing anything.
Okay, so I believe we are all unanimous on it then. To close out this debut edition, we're going to put Ichiryuu, I can never say that quickly, Ichiryuu from Toriko in the top tier. It's always a grand addition when we do that. Below Cell and above Negi Springfield. Cool. That's neat. Got a new addition up there. Probably not going to be the last if that's the direction these characters are headed. Yeah, this series is going nuts. So, unfortunately, we've lost a couple members here as they've had various different internet issues, but that's cool. This is not Beamcast. This is much more casual, kind of drop in, have fun, chat shonen. So I want to say thank you, first of all, to those that we are not able to hear a goodbye from. So thank you very much to John and to Jeff, both of you, for showing up earlier and discussing the tier list with us. One, maybe even both, hopefully both of them, will maybe be able to join us this Friday. I want to organize a discussion. This is not going to be tier list based. This is going to be just about the general world of shonen. It's kind of an even broader picture than we usually take in Beamcast. Rather than discussing what happened in chapter number X of the series that came out this week, it's going to be a big picture, broad look at shonen, hopefully starting a weekly discussion on that. So hopefully we'll see some of them there. I also want to say thank you very much to you, Michael, for joining us. You've been a big help and very enjoyable to have you on the show. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Michael.
Glad to be here.
And Clint, my partner in Tier List Crime, as always. Thanks for sticking in there.
It's been horrible. I'm done. I quit.
The tradition every single week. This is terrible, and I hate it, and I want to be done. My name is Jean. Thank you all so much for listening. We are done here. Please continue to check out shonenbeam.com. We'll keep adding more and more features like this. Hopefully, now that most of us have webcams, we're going to be doing a lot of video content. If you like it, if you'd like to see something changed, if you have a suggestion, as always, we're all ears. shonenbeam@gmail.com, at shonenbeam on Twitter, or any other of the myriad social media, G+, Facebook, Twitter, Orkut, Foursquare, in LinkedIn, MySpace. Yeah, just get a hold of us, basically. So that's it. Thank you all so much for tuning in to check out the Great Shonen Tier List feature. We're going to be doing this again every week. Sorry, Clint. And thank you very much. Good night, all.